Dobro jutro. Dobro jutro, dobrodošli. Good morning and welcome at AmCham Business Breakfast. Truly excited that you all came on time, and also a good morning to everyone who is watching us live on the social media. I have plenty of facts, figures about today's topic, but I basically would like to start with something else. You all know that the longest study done by Harvard about how you can lead happy life, basically after 80 years showed that if you have a good relationships, you have a happy and long life. Imagine what they found after 80 years. And probably if we would talk about the synergies among investors, SMEs, big companies, relationships would be also something that would all cherish and value, and establishing trust as well. And I don't want to talk about facts and figures because we will have splendid guests today who will talk out of their experience, and that's why we'll leave it up to them. But when we talk about relationships, we cherish and we are grateful for the relationship and the support we are having with our patron member, PwC. So with that, Paul, can I please invite you and ask you the important question. You have the experience working with SMEs, big companies, the investors. So how would you say that the relationships with them are? Is this something that is well done in Slovenia, or you see in the region better connections?
The relationships between the smaller ones and the larger ones?
And the investors, yeah.
And the investors. I think relationships are probably quite similar everywhere. I'm not sure there's such a big difference, but it's certainly, because I think there's maybe not so many large businesses in this region. But certainly you see a balance maybe between here and maybe more Western Europe, because I think each of them have their place. If I look around in the economy, the small, medium-sized, the large, they're all necessary. Like it's an integral part for the economy. You need the big companies to be making big series, big production, helping them maybe other large B2Bs. Whereas I think you need the smaller entities to be doing the niche products, to be doing a bit more innovation. I think that's their strength, the agility, the innovation, and so on. So I think it's they all find their natural place to some extent in the world. I mean, I think often they then start looking at each other's markets because the smaller ones want to get bigger and the bigger ones want to go into niche products and specialize. So I think there can be overlap, and sometimes they just need to learn how to talk to each other maybe better, and either work together or find ways of cooperating. But I think it's a natural balance between the two.
So thank you, Paul. And we'll hear today how do they talk together and what they think about each other. And with that, we were talking relationships and trust. And I trust that Nevenka Čerišner-Perger, our co-chair of the Committee for Investment, will do these great talks with all of them. So Nevenka, with that, please, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Aisha. Thank you, Pavel. Good morning, everyone. It's really my privilege to moderate again this very important topic, not easy at all. We'll talk about the very big power of small and medium enterprises, their importance for the growth of Slovenian economy and job creation, their interconnection with the companies and big companies, and finally the challenges they face to finance the potential growth or how to attract the investors to be interested in them. Before I give the floor to my first speaker, I would like to tell you a few words about the work of the investment committee, of AmCham Investment Committee. Some of you, actually quite a lot of you, might recall that we organized a year ago at the same time, 19th of April, same place, the Slovenian Business Bridge with the title Does Slovenia Feel Investors, where we discussed all the obstacles that investors, domestic and foreign, are facing in Slovenia. During the dialogue among the business people at that time and with the government representatives, NGOs and experts, we defined 3 areas of obstacles where improvements are needed to attract more investments. One area, definitely efficient business environment. Shorter permitting is needed, shorter court cases, less red tape. Efficient labor market to keep and attract the talents. And the last topic was in the area of taxation. We proposed the introduction of social cap. Investment committee decided also for this year to keep this focused, but we added one more, in our opinion, very important topic. And this is efficient, fair, and unbiased work of different state agencies, environmental, competition protection agencies, security agencies. We want to check whether our regulation in these 3 areas, or areas of work of different state and governmental agencies, is in accordance with the EU regulation, whether the processes in front of these agencies are unbiased or influenced by different interest groups. As soon as the new government is formed, we will engage with them, start discussing with them, offering them our help, very concrete help. People from AmCham, we are willing to even help them checking the legislation, drafting the legislation, just in order to make Slovenian economy, in particular the SMEs, SME companies being more proactive, more active, and that we all benefit from improving our business environment. Back to today's topic. We will focus primarily on the interdependence, connections between the investors, big companies, and SMEs. The fil rouge of this conversation will be their collaboration for common growth and job creation. And discussion will be not easily organized in 3 parts. First, I would like to invite to the stage the investors. Then we will have a discussion with the representatives of some big companies. And at the end, not least important, with the representatives of SMEs. So, distinguished guests, I would like to invite my first speakers this morning, Mr. Andrzej Bartosz from Innova Capital, Poland. Mr. Yes, please, the second. Michal Sopivnik from Aquila Software from Canada. And our very special guest this morning, Mr. Ludo Bemans from KKR. Please, the stage is yours. I would like to start with you, Mr. Bartosz. You were here with us last year as well. You represent Innova Capital from Poland, one of the very first private equity funds established in '94, focusing in the region. You exited your first investment in Slovenia in 2006, which was as an SME. And then 2 years ago, you bought a little bit larger company, Trimo. What are your ideas? How do you see actually the development of business environment in Slovenia?
Okay. Well, let me first say that I'm very happy to be here again. And Innova, my firm, is also very happy to be an investor in this country. We had tried, as you know very well, to buy other companies before we bought Trimo. Finally, we succeeded in buying this company, which I hope many of you know. And although it's a relatively large company here, in the international perspective, it's an SME. And for SME, what's critical to become a large company is growth. I know it sounds very naive, but that's what it takes. If you're small, you want to be big, you have to grow. And for companies like Trimo, the growth is international. And I think that's, on one hand, what we want to achieve in Trimo. On the other hand, this is obviously posing also the biggest challenge, because so we're happy to be an investor, but it doesn't come without challenges. And I think the key challenge is the human capital. to be very honest. I think the international growth is taking a lot of effort and investment in sales and marketing. And we have added a lot of cost internationally to make sure that the local company here produces more products. But I think the other very relevant challenge is the openness of the people here to grow internationally and to change the environment in which they operate. What we have found is a lot of very skilled engineers and product people. But I think what we have not found, at least so far, is people who can go abroad and conquer the markets. And for that reason, we had to bring some foreigners, not because we wanted, but because we needed. And only now we're starting to shift again the leadership to local people.
But what we see here in Slovenia lately is that a lot of very young, talented people are leaving the country. So why you have this problem with Slovenes going abroad working for Trimo?
I mean, interestingly, what we have found in a lot of our briefings to headhunters were, please find a Slovene who would like to come back to Slovenia. And it wasn't very easy to attract that talent. I mean, interestingly, we have succeeded now to bring back a CEO who is a Slovene and will be starting in Trimo on the 1st of May. But what we have found is a lot of Slovenes who are very successful working internationally, for some reason don't want to come back. And I think that's a challenge that the country needs to face, how to attract those people back with all their experience that will, again, help local companies develop internationally.
Any other challenges? Just this?
I'll leave the technicalities aside. I think doing deals is different in different markets. So obviously each market has its issues in terms of being either too formalistic or too bureaucratic, but ultimately that's not going to stop investors if they find good businesses and good opportunities here.
Innova Capital plan to establish, today we are talking about the interest for SMEs. You plan to establish a new fund focusing only on SMEs in Poland, Slovenia, and Romania. At the end, you dropped the idea. Why?
In fact, we didn't abandon the idea. I think we evaluated this idea because indeed there's even more interesting companies that are smaller than Trimo, and our main fund cannot invest in those. So we were looking at the possibility of raising a dedicated small cap fund that would be addressing those. And again, at the moment, it's not on the agenda, at least not for short term. What we have found is that for this type of capital, there has to be local investor base as well. Because this is not a typical offering for large international investors into private equity. So in most countries, those small cap funds are largely supported by local investor base, the local insurance companies, pension funds. And to be very honest, I don't think we have found enough interest among local institutions, not just in Slovenia, in doing that. So we may come back to it at some point in the future, but indeed at the moment it's not on the agenda.
Maybe you will change your opinion. I would like to ask one of our guests present here, the representative of Kaya Finance, Mr. Tone Pekol. Kaya Finance last year, I think, established an alternative investment fund where the majority of investors are Slovene wealthy entrepreneur. So not institutional investors, not pension funds, but Slovene investors. My husband very often says that we Slovenes should invest more domestically. Take the money out of your socks and invest in Slovenian companies. So you succeeded to collect around 30 million of money from entrepreneurs. Why you decided to establish and whether there are enough opportunities on the Slovene market?
Okay, thank you for the question. Yes, actually what you said, it's true. Last year we decided to establish an alternative investment fund. We raised circa 30 million euro capital from only Slovene wealthy individuals, entrepreneurs who believe that SME is a successful story. As a financial advisors, we are constantly present on Slovenian market. Our biggest part of customers comes from the SME segment. So we know our customers very well, and we know for a lot of opportunities, especially in the range of deal value between 2 and 10 million euro. We know that deals up to 2 million euros are done, let's say, by the street, by individuals or group of individuals. Deals with deal value more than 10 million euros are done by international investors, by some strategic investors. But this gap between is a market gap which is more or less neglected. Nobody is seriously taking part of this game. So we decided to step into this segment, establish a fund. The deal flow is quite huge. So now we are already in the process to establish a new fund, which will be private equity oriented. And we plan to be on the market in the beginning of 2019.
Do you plan to invite also, I don't know, like foreign funds to join you in your endeavors?
We are always open to discussion, of course, because this industry in Slovenia is more or less new. We have a lot of investors for venture capital, but private equity is still underdeveloped. So we are interested to be in discussion also with developed players on the market in this region.
Congratulations in any case that you succeeded to collect the money and also to find. Would you agree with me that maybe Slovenian SMEs are promoting themselves not sufficiently to find the investors, or they don't want to get the investors?
Let's say the situation is changing, but this older generation is not very prepared to be open and to let some other investors to step into their companies. But now in Slovenia, it's very important progress that first generations of Slovenian entrepreneurs are solving their succession issues. And when they will retire, they will have to change the ownership of their companies. If they do not have daughters or sons prepared to take over the company, another step is probably to sell the companies. And this is one important deal flow opportunities which is now going on.
Thank you, Tone. So, Andre, maybe you will change your mind. And actually, talking about the succession, here where you come in, Michal, correct?
Yeah.
You bought a very important Slovenian IT company. Maybe just to say a few words about Aquila's software, maybe you can do that by yourself, and that tell us a little bit about how you decided to come to Slovenia, to invest in Slovenia, and how you found AmCham.
So Aquila's software is part of a Canadian software holding called Constellation Software. And Constellation's vision is to assemble a portfolio of as many industry-specific software companies as possible. So last year alone, we acquired over 60 companies. And
Where?
Mainly Europe. When I joined in 2012, I think 98% of the turnover actually came from the US and Canada. Right now, we are around 50-50 between North America and Europe. So
60 companies a lot. I mean, even from the process-wise, it's not easy to deal, huh?
Yeah. So we have a unique business model, and I think there are mainly two characteristics that stand out. So the first one is it's a very decentralized and autonomous approach. So when we buy companies, we keep the infrastructure, the company name, even the managers stay on board. 90% of the managers that sell their business to us stay with us, and 10% decide to retire or take care of other projects. And the second part is we keep our companies forever, and that resonates well with family-owned businesses. It's fairly unique, it's very rare, and running companies so independently is very rare too, because ultimately it comes down to human nature. It's a feeling that people are afraid to lose control, so everyone is talking about synergies, centralizations, and so on, and we don't believe in it at all.
So let's come to AmCham.
Yeah.
It was well-known, it is still well-known Slovenian company, established in '92. We have the former owner here, and he will join us later. So be careful what do you say.
Only good things to say. Yeah.
Okay. How did you find them? How important are they for you?
Yeah, so we had the first discussions in 2013. The first meeting took place in 2014. Ultimately, we ended up...
You approached them or they?
Yeah, I reached out to Marko Valjavec. He's here as well. He was back then the CEO of AmCham. He still is. And he introduced me to Matjaž, and we visited them first in 2014. And we ended up buying the company in October 2016. And, you know, when we look at companies, and we look at many, just to get 60 closings done means that we have to talk to many, many more. I would say that our M&A team roughly looks at 2,000 companies on a yearly basis, just to get 60 closings.
Sorry, how big is then your team? 2,000 companies.
Yeah, it's by now it's quite big. I remember when I joined our annual M&A meeting, we had 15 people there in 2012. Right now it's over 200. And so we look at so many companies, and the ability to pass on companies that do not match our investment criteria it's just very important, because it frees up time for in-depth study on companies that do align with our investment criteria and strategy. So we usually put them into five categories. But what we look at is mainly companies that I refer to as legacy mode businesses, and that's AmCham. So they have a very strong entrenched position within a specific defined market, high market share, they offer mission-critical products, and at the core, these are beautiful businesses. But the problem is they have limited opportunities to grow. And
so this is where you come in, huh?
Yeah, this is where we come in, and many of the Slovenian companies that we look at are legacy mode businesses. And theoretically, the owners should elect to dividend out as much cash as possible from the business if they can't reinvest the money at a high rate of return. But we see the opposite, right? It's in the ex-Yugoslavian region, it's almost immoral to extract cash from the business. So they continue to reinvest it, although they can't earn any return on invested capital at all. And then we help to transform the business and help them to not only be good operators, but also to be good at capital allocators. And finding both characteristics in one person is very hard to find.
So you have succeeded to expand the business, to grow the business, to find new markets, or? So
yeah, what we did is, so the company is growing, it's stable. I mean, you won't see big jumps. We have a high market share in the industries that we are in. So we are talking about the 60-80% range, right? So AmCham changed our mind and our mindset and the picture of this region, because when we came in, we learned that our picture of Slovenia and ex-Yugoslavia is completely wrong. And we are very satisfied with the acquisition, and I can agree with many points. The workforce is extremely educated, strong, and although the number of students that go abroad is increasing, it's still very, very low compared to other European countries. And it changed our mind, and just in January of this year, we acquired another company. The company is called IN2, Indva. It's Croatia's largest software company, and we wouldn't have done the deal without AmCham.
Bravo. Do you have any further plans for Slovenia to invest? Are you looking in? Do you have something in your?
We are always having discussions, but it's again, all the deals that we do are with family-owned businesses. By contrast to the US is much more professional. You know, you have a great year, you kind of repeat it just to show that it's a viable business model, and then you sell it, right? Here it's their baby. You got to be very patient, and that's fine. You know, on average, from the first call to deal closing, we spend roughly 4 years with the prospect, and it has to be, you know, it has to be the right timing for both parties, because we keep our companies forever. And we just, you know, we are very transparent. We rely on an existing management to continue to run the businesses. So we don't want to find out after closing that we have different visions. It has to be right for both parties.
You mentioned that these companies are usually their babies. Aisha would say you never sell a baby. So
Yeah, that's a big
then you
issue
can
here,
imagine
yeah.
that's a big issue. But do you allow the owners to stay within the company with you, or you want them to exit completely?
No, as I said, it's if the owners, if the management team wants to stay on board, we highly appreciate it, because I mean, just by hearing the numbers, 60 acquisitions that was last year. I think this year we will likely land in the 75, 80 range. The numbers will probably increase to 100, 105, 10 maybe per year, and then it will plateau. But this basically means that we double the amount of companies that we manage every 2 to 3 years, and we can't do it on our own. We can't do it on our own. So it's always great to keep people on board that actually know the markets, are very close to the customers, and we just give them resources. We exchange know-how, and we've probably done every single mistake out there in the past, and it's better to learn from our mistakes than
It's easy to. How do you value the managers here in Slovenia? Do we have good management teams?
Again, it's a mix of everything. So we were lucky, and because Marko Valjavec is kind of a US trained manager, earned an MBA. There came back, which was fortunate for us. But again, we find a lot of legacy mode companies that just are not good capital allocators, and that's what they have to learn.
Thank you, Michal. Mr. Wawens, I'm very happy to have you here with us. I mean, you have a little bit different experience from the previous two speakers. Huh? You represent the KKR, which is a leading global investment firm listed on New York Stock Exchange. And since 1996, you invested in 58 companies across sectors in Europe, representing over 20 billion in invested long-term capital, of which 8 billion in telecoms, media, and digital sectors globally. Last year, we all know, you announced the purchase of the Pro Plus in Slovenia. That was supposed to be not your first investment, because you are here from before through the United Group, correct? Why are you interested in the region of Central and Eastern Europe? What are your intentions with Pop TV and Canal A? And of course, what does Slovenia gain with an investor like you?
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
We might be listed in New York and all the rest of it, but in fact, I feel very much at home here with the ecocosmos, as you call it, that is growing. When I hear about a private equity fund that wants to invest smaller tickets, up to 5, 10 million, and local companies, when you see corporates moving in, when you see yourself, what you're doing, it shows that there is an ecocosmos building of companies that want to grow. Both of you refer to growth as a critical factor. Companies that want to change to a certain extent, that want to be better at what they do. That is the type of culture that is really needed to create successful companies. Mm-hmm. And when you have good companies at a certain moment, and they become bigger, then also firms like ourselves, who are more at the larger end, will start looking at these companies. I need to learn from you about your hit rate. You mentioned 6,000 companies you look at to do 2,060 investments. You do better than we do. We look annually at
and
about...
none better than Innova.
We do 1%. Our conversion is 1%.
Yeah, unfortunately we are in his camp, so we both need to do a course with you how you do that thing. Why investing, and how would Slovenia benefit? Of course, it's up to you to judge, but this would be our advertorial. Firstly, like these guys, when we enter into a company, we enter to make it grow and to make it better.
Bravo.
We fail if the company after 5 years is the same as it was when we entered. when it
Or
was not-
worse.
Or worse. So, of the 50 plus companies you mentioned, just Google our website, look at them. You have everything across all sectors. We did media in Germany with ProSieben Sat.1. We have done fiber optics with Glasfaser in Germany. All of these companies were much, much better companies after 7 years on average that we were in the company than at the moment when we entered. They were better, more competitive, better equipped. Because next to growth, many sectors face disruption. Digital disruption. Commerce is disrupted by e-commerce. The whole media set is disrupted by new players coming in, the Netflixes of this world. And we help support companies in dealing with that type of challenges. So first benefit, hopefully, is we just built better companies than they were before. Am I allowed to do a second benefit?
Of course, go on.
The second benefit would be when, it's the same as for you, when KKR invests, it's not our money that we invest. This is the funds, like the funds that you are collecting, of other people. So who are these other people? About 44 million pensioners across the world, teachers, fire workers, in the metal sector, in the healthcare sector, who give us their money and say, you invest on our behalf. You have wealthy people who give us part of their money. You have insurance companies. And all these people ask us on a quarterly basis, how is your investment doing? Not just from a financial perspective, but what difficulties do you have? What challenges do you face? So since we have so many investors who have given us their money, which we then invest, we act a bit as a loudspeaker. Because every quarter we report to them, and we say to them, this is going well, and this is going not so well. So if you look at us, see us as a bit of a gateway into a global investment world. If you take specifically United Group or the type of investment we're going to make here, there are about 500 global investors who are invested and who ask us on a quarterly basis, how is the company doing, how is Slovenia doing, and what are your challenges? So we act a bit as a loudspeaker. The third benefit, I think, that we might bring is, we call it in our jargon, KKR family and friends. We bring with us a whole family. And the first part of our family is the 150 other companies in the world that we are invested in. They have global turnover of about $500 billion, about 1 million people. And all of these 150 companies, when they want to expand, for instance, into Europe, they ask us, the first question they ask us, where should we go? Is Slovenia, is another country, is that a good country to invest in? And these are companies in the building sector, in the IT sector, in the media sector, the telecom sector, the automobile sector, engineering sector. So all these companies that we own in the world come to us and say, where should we invest? And is, in this case, Slovenia, is that a good place to go to work? So that's the first part of the family. And then the second part of the family are the suppliers, the people who partner with our portfolio companies. And I'm going to finish with 2 examples. Look at ProSieben Sat.1. And if you Google it, the Digital Ventures platform. It was unique when we did it. In fact, what ProSieben said, listen, there are so many good companies, smaller, who need the marketing side. Well, that's kind of the expertise we have. Why don't we do a win-win? We get 5, 2, whatever % of your capital. You don't need to pay us for the advertising and all the digital marketing. We will do that for you. So and now there's a portfolio of about 30 companies that are part of the ProSieben family. That's a way of working with other companies and building that family, that connectivity that is so critical. And I'm going to give a last example in the IT sector. We invest in technology funds as from 10 million. So if you know good technology companies, we often only take minority stakes, so 20, 30%. We don't want to own them totally, 20, 30%. Our global companies the 150, they have an IT budget of 10 billion. 10 billion annually. So imagine you are a local tech company, for instance in cybersecurity. And you say, I want to go to, I think my product is really good, I want to go to the global markets. We can give you access in one go to 150 companies worldwide to a $10 billion IT budget. That is the type of support that we can bring to local companies and helping them to take that quantum leap step out of. We have done this with companies in Berlin, in Cambridge, and we hope to do the same with companies in the region. So those are, at least is our advertorial on the benefits we could bring.
Mr. Bemens, you mentioned ProSieben, which you acquired recently. Could you make parallels regarding the process? How was the process in Germany? I mean, we are both, Slovenia and Germany, we are EU countries, so we are supposed to have the same regulations, I believe. Could you make the parallels with Germany and Slovenia? Where are the differences, or why the process in Slovenia is taking so long?
Yeah. First, I want to say, if we are interested in acquiring an asset like Pro, it is because we believe there is growth to make, and we believe there is a transformation going to happen in the next 5 years, which will really radically change the market. We did a consumer survey with 1,500 citizens in Slovenia by an international agency. It is pretty astonishing what is going to happen. In fact, the country has done really well in building its digital highways. All of you are connected to 3 and 4G, all have really good bandwidth at home. And now we see that the media consumption, including the news consumption, is changing dramatically. Not with people like me who are old, male, pale and stale, but with the younger generation. They are really shifting. And talk to your children, ask how they consume entertainment, how they consume news. It is a total shift from the old linear model. And we have seen that happening first in the US, and then that wave came through Europe. And in the early 2000s, we saw it started to happen in Germany. So we said, here we have an opportunity with ProSieben to be ahead of that curve, not to have them slaughtered and being totally swamped with what was coming over the digital highways, but make it a very strong local partner. So when we looked at other markets in Europe where we could do kind of the same, we said, hey, there might be an opportunity with a much smaller asset in Slovenia. Help a company prepare for this future. So then on your point about how long does it take? We were for 10 years or so in ProSieben Sat.1. It was a listed company at the end. Two things are important. Whenever you acquire an asset which deals with media, it is sensitive. Of course, it is sensitive. Please ask anyone within ProSieben Sat.1, ask the CEO, the chairman, everyone. Never, 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 as an owner, you interfere with the editorial guidelines.
Maybe that's the reason you
Never.
For the long process in Slovenia.
Well, I don't know. I only can tell you.
Because you don't allow interference.
No, well.
Sorry.
I don't comment on that one. I can only say that.
It's my comment.
Yeah, that we don't do. Never, ever, ever. And we will always respect the total editorial freedom of what is in place. And in this case, that would be the same. We would never, never touch this. What is there, it's fine and alike. We will help the company with other things, like the whole digital transformation. That is critical. And then the second point I wanted to make is typically, we have done 50 investments in Europe in very sensitive sectors. We have a big investment in Germany with Hensoldt, a defense company, technology and defense company, it's sensitive, defense, right? Or telecom and media are typically sensitive. So we fully know the process. We understand it takes time. And it is important that the local agencies and the authorities get time to get used and familiar with who we are, what we stand for, and make the analysis. Typically, it takes between 1 and 9 months. I've never known it to be longer than 9 months.
How long does it take now? I mean, it's how long in Slovenia?
I think we have introduced the file in August 2017.
So we are close to 9 months. 9 months.
Is that 9 months? Yeah.
Yeah,
so
okay.
around 9 months.
I hope you succeed. We at AmCham, I think we believe Slovenia needs good investors. We need growth for prosperity of the country, for all of us who are living here. And I would like very much, I'm so happy to see today with us His Excellency, the American ambassador, Mr. Hartley. I know, Mr. Ambassador, how hard you are trying to attract investors to Slovenia. What is your take on the issue?
Nevenka, hvala lepa, and thank you very much for having me today. And thank you, as always, to AmCham for the very interesting programs and discussions that you put on. So I welcome this opportunity to offer some thoughts. One of our biggest priorities at the U.S. Embassy here, and indeed at all of our embassies, it's a top priority for the United States government in general, is to promote more business ties, more trade between the United States and the world, and in that regard, Slovenia is no exception. And it's been one of my top priorities here to try to find ways to encourage U.S. investment in Slovenia, U.S. business in Slovenia, but at the same time also to encourage Slovenian investors and Slovenian businesses to look at the American market as well. I've had the honor of leading a couple of delegations now to a major foreign direct investment conference in Washington the last couple of years that have included some Slovenian companies that in fact are finding opportunities there. So that's something I want to continue to encourage. I'm just learned in the last couple of weeks that the Bank of Slovenia has done an updated analysis of foreign direct investment in Slovenia. And they've looked at, not at they've done a more refined, a deeper analysis on the ultimate investors in Slovenia. And what they have found is that the United States is the second largest investor, or at least American companies and American businesses are the second largest investors in Slovenia after Germany.
Bravo, we don't know that actually.
Yeah, this was obscured earlier by a lot of the investments coming through secondary firms in Luxembourg and the Netherlands, from Germany, things like that. So I'm very, very pleased, and it's the time of the year for my performance evaluation, so you can be sure that's going to be right at the top. With regard to KKR, we have, of course, as we would for any American company, any American investor, take an interest, support where we can. In my conversations with Slovenian government officials on the issue, what I've emphasized is that we expect, particularly from a member of the European Union and a NATO ally, that there will be a level playing field. That any American company will be able to compete and invest in Slovenia consistent with Slovenian and European law and regulation. And that's all we ask. Then it's up to the company to make their case. So we, and in the case of this particular investment, I know that KKR has been bending over backward to accommodate some of the concerns that have come up with regard to their media investment. And I hope that is fully taken into account. I suspect in this and with other investments, other foreign investors will be watching to see how this investment is treated. And I can only hope that it's successful, because then it will be one more a positive note for investors looking at Slovenia as a good place to come. So again, hvala lepa, and thank you very much.
Hvala lepa to you, Mr. Ambassador. Dear guests, this is the end of our first part. Thank you for helping Slovenia growing the businesses and growing the employment. And I hope you will be as successful in the future as till now. Thank you very much. I'm on time. Now is the time for the second round of discussion, and I would like to invite to the stage the representatives of two big Slovenian companies, Mr. Gregor Benčina, who 10 years ago bought Jelovica, at that time quite troubled company in the wood industry, and not so long time ago you added to your portfolio Slovenialis. And the second distinguished speaker this morning is Mr. Bojan Gantar. First, I would like to congratulate Bojan. He took over the position of CEO of Alpina, state-owned company, owned by Bank Asset Management Company. As you know, Alpina, shoe producer, a lot of problems, but Bojan succeeded in a very short period of time to turn the results of Alpina into positive way. So good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
And actually, both of you are leading companies with well-known brands. So Gregor, when you decided to buy Jelovica, how important was the brand for you, for the decision you made at that time?
Thank you very much, and good morning to all of you. And may I give you my answer,
yes,
which would be related to something what the gentleman from Innova Capital said.
Okay.
So
Go
he
on.
mentioned growth. And I think that growth can be based only on knowledge, quality, and brands. And that's where I came to your question. Yes, of course, the brand Jelovica, which is currently 105 years old, with 105. So it's really a long tradition, one of the longest in Europe in this field, with the 75 years of history of prefabricated buildings. So it's really something what is quite unique. 12,000 objects built in 5 continents, and that makes us unique. So we started to build our story on the brand, on the quality, and we said we need to have such a quality product that we can go from east to west. Our previous markets used to be the former Yugoslavian markets, Bulgaria, and so further down to the Balkan. Today, 85% of our revenue comes from Switzerland, Germany, Austria, and even further west.
And the brand helped because Jelovica, I mean, was the well-known brand for the region, but what about West?
The quality makes this.
Ah, bravo, congratulations.
So later on, we said, okay, now we became, let's say, a known player in the market of smart prefabricated buildings. One of the leaders in Europe in the field of, let's say, bigger buildings, in the field of sports buildings, and of course, we are running as well our main product, what was housing, energy efficient housing. But then we realized that we are actually getting too small. And then we turned on to see what we can do, and we went to the downstream and upstream integration. And today we are covering actually everything from our raw material, which is then reproduced and produced, and at the end it comes energy efficient smart house. I can say that in 10 years we doubled the value add per capita, per employee.
Bravo.
We doubled the revenue, and we doubled as well the revenue per capita. So 3 times doubling all the figures, and I think we are now ready to grow further and to expand more, because I firmly believe that in Slovenia we need so-called industry leaders who are actually pulling with them, let's say, smaller players.
We will discuss this, yeah, that's very important.
And that's where we want to be.
But coming back to brands, do you see any new brands being built in Slovenia? That's quite difficult, huh?
I think there are brands,
Yeah.
but
New ones?
it really as well we can find some new ones, and especially we can find more tries how to make them. But building a brand, it's a long process and it's a very expensive process. And probably most of you will still remember the brand Yellow. It's from the cartoon,
Yes.
which was
Sure.
on the TVs from 80s.
Bravo. Bojan, same case with you. You are the manager of the company, okay, state-owned, but with a long tradition, with very, over 70 years, we discussed, old brand Alpina. But recently you just bought also brand Peko, same shoe industry, your former competitor. How important is brand for you, for Alpina, going international?
Nice welcome also from my side. Thank you for inviting me as a representative of Alpina. To tell something more about Alpina brand, I need to tell in general something about Alpina. It's the fact, yes, as you said, that we were celebrating last year 70th anniversary. I will tell a short story. I will not go into all the details what happened in the last 70 years. But it's the fact that Alpina was really successfully developed for at least 5 decades. And then with the so-called famous Slovenian privatization, the company lost more than a decade, more than last decade. So the development of the company was stopped completely. And you mentioned that I'm new in the company. Actually, I'm celebrating today 2nd anniversary in Alpina.
Congratulations.
And this is quite a long time because 2 years ago I said to my wife that I don't know if I will have this job for a week or maybe a month. So this is huge success now. And why I'm pointing out these 2 years, because when I came into Alpina, I found out that infrastructure is 70 years old, and this is connected with the brand. That's why I'm explaining this. Infrastructure is 70 years old. Technology, equipment, machinery
Even
was
older?
25 to 35 years old. But something was there. Passionate, loyal, knowledgeable people, my colleagues. They were there, they were developing, they were still, people in the town where Alpina is located are very stubborn. They were stubborn and developing new products, generating new ideas. And one more thing we had, and we still have, brand, Alpina brand. So actually Alpina survived because of people, my colleagues, and because of the brand. That's why the brand is very important. You asked before, my colleague, if there are some new brands in Slovenia. Probably there are, but we were even more successful in destroying what we had. This was a mistake, huge mistake. It's good, today that we are producing components in Slovenia, being efficient in the production process and so on for German brands. But at the end, it's also good to have some Slovenian brands. And we had a lot of them. Unfortunately, we destroyed them. You asked about Peko. We decided to do something with the Peko brand. They were our competitor in the past. For those who don't know, Alpina is strong in sport segment of the footwear, of the boots, let's say, with strong presence in North America, Scandinavia, even more, also locally in Slovenia and Croatia. And on the other side, we also developing and selling fashion shoes. And in this part, Peko brand will help us to grow, basically.
Bojan,
and this is the idea of acquiring Peko brand.
It was probably easier for you managing the company because you're local. It was easier to motivate employees or not? Yes or no?
It's not a simple question or short answer, unfortunately.
No,
it was for me easier to understand them. Maybe it was more challenging, or I was even more disappointed because, I believe that when I came into the company, that people will say, oh, okay, now we have the same direction. But it was not like that, you know, because of the mismanaged company in the past.
It was much more difficult.
I am still, so 2 years from starting the cooperation with my colleagues. Each day, my biggest effort is still to convince people that we are in the same boat.
But obviously
this process is never stopped, unfortunately.
Gregor, earlier you wanted actually to start this discussion. We have in Slovenia, majority of the companies are SMEs, 99%, but we do not have a lot of large companies. So first question, how to grow companies together and how to build a sustainable ecosystem between both, SMEs and large companies for the success of the Slovenia?
I don't know. It's a $1 million question. But what we can see is that in the past we had quite big companies in Slovenia, and of course with big brands. So we had such called industry leaders. We had Iskra in the field of electronics. We had Slovenialis in the field of wood processing. We had Elan in the sports industry and so on. And all those industry were pulling behind all of the, let's say, smaller family-owned businesses. In the last 15 years, we are coping with the switch to the SMEs, which are really fast, growing, flexible, knowledgeable, expandable businesses. But like it was said just before, those are mainly production-oriented, or they rely on somebody who is bigger somewhere out of Slovenia. And I see there a potential threat to our economy, and that's why I think that our economy should as well have, just like you can have in army, the ships, you have an air carrier followed by, I don't know, cruisers and the smaller ones, and then of course you have fast boats around. And we need all of them. And if I just give you an example, maybe about one region in Slovenia, which I think is therefore very successful, it's the Dolenjska region, or maybe we can slowly call it a Little France, But you have Revoz or Renault, you have Adria Mobil, and you have Krka. But behind them, you can find hundreds of very successful SMEs. But they started mainly started with the cooperation of those big ones. And I think we need to have them in our economy.
So we need more large companies in Slovenia.
We need to have more modern, large, end product companies who are able to compete in global environment. Because with that, I think we can achieve a faster growth.
So how much you work with? How much is your revenue from the cooperation with SMEs? How important are SMEs for you? And the same question for you, Bojan.
I would say that behind our group, there is the revenue which is at least twice as big as ours.
Congratulations.
So, or we create at least twice as much jobs out of our company with the process.
And the initiative is usually yours or coming from the SMEs? Are they coming to you proposing cooperation?
I would say it's both ways, and it's needed because they come with additional improvements. They are sometimes faster, and we need them, and they need us as well. That's my opinion. And just together, we can make this breakthrough. And may I just say that I think that the biggest asset in Slovenia, listening to the previous roundtable, listening as well to Bojan, are the people. The people and the knowledge which is present. Of course, we are lacking in some of the fields. Globalizations, we sometimes are not so self aware, and we don't dare to go somewhere out.
You're not afraid of losing them living abroad, or those young people?
Let's attract new ones as well.
Okay, good. Bojan, what is your experience in the area of working with SMEs? You told me last time when we discussed over the phone that you give a lot of work to SMEs. In which areas? More innovative or more, I don't know how to say the English word, stanzane?
as a traditional company, for sure, we are giving a lot of, let's say, business, a lot of work to SMEs in, let's say, in regular purchasing raw material and so on from them. But maybe more important here is that when we started the restructuring process, we knew that we don't have the needed financial strength and power and so on. So we started the cooperation with different small and medium-sized businesses and companies. And this really helped us to stabilize and improve the situation very fast. So on one side, it's purchasing different materials from them, but even more important is having the cooperation with different local and global innovators. So today we are developing with innovator from Montenegro, completely new insole solution. On the other side, we are working with the Scandinavian team on the completely new cross-country skiing solution. And then we have very good cooperation with, it's, I would say, famous in Slovenia, famous innovator Peter Slatner, and so on and so on. So this is R&D field of the cooperation of these small businesses. And then we have different cooperations with famous designers, fashion designers, Slovenian and Italian designers. And at the end, we need to place the product on the market. It's different co-branding projects, cooperation with marketing agencies, and so on. So all this complete the range.
Help Alpina to grow and help also SMEs to grow, correct?
Yes, correct. And maybe, again, even more important, all these partners understood the specific, on one side, specific situation in which Alpina was, and on the other side, they were willing to take a chance and to work with us, yes.
Bravo, bravo. So congratulations. One last question for you, Gregor. Slovenia has been doing quite well. Economy is doing well in the last few years, but still, we are living in a very volatile, uncertain times. Have been the companies invested enough during these years to prepare for a potential new crisis? They invested in knowledge, machines, technologies, advancement, new markets.
I would say that in the last 10 years, Slovene companies became much better what they used to be. That's, I think, a very strong point. And the second, I think that the balance sheets are much better than they used to be. I think that the market which they cover is much better covered than it used to be. But I might be afraid that maybe the structure which we are having, which we were talking before, is not just the right one for all of the storms which might come, because with the small boats out of the sea, believe me, I know it. I sailed the Atlantic a few times, so I know how it's up there. So we need some bigger boats to make the shelter for the small ones. And I would say that we need to invest more in the equipment, in the Industry 4.0, and in the branding.
Thank you, Gregor. Bravo. I would like to invite, at the end of this roundtable, this part, Mr. Janko Media, our keynote listener this morning, who has the experiences in big companies and now also in smaller companies. How do you see this cooperation? As Gregor likes to say, we are much stronger when we work together.
Thank you. First, let me say congratulations to both of you for excellent stories. I've known Gregor for a very long time. There were years back when he had considered a different story, and I'm extremely happy he decided for this one, which is a story of development and leadership in the economic community. I couldn't support more what he said, which is let's build strong entities and let's help others grow with us. I do have a question, though, and I don't want to be too long, because both from the banking experience, which you mentioned, and as well as working now almost full energy with Interblock Elektronček, which is a Slovenian exporter as well, a startup that grew in a world leader in a niche in 25 years. But everybody faces the same question. I'm sure you are facing it too. What's the next step? We are still all SMEs, let's be clear. On a European level, on the international level, all of these companies are SMEs. As long as you're not, above 500 billion revenues, we're SMEs. We can go two ways. We can go the way of, or three. We can stay SMEs and work nicely, but we will be rocked by the waves a little bit more. We can go, hopefully, the direction of the German Mittelstand, where the SMEs are really the strong backbone, and they do remain more or less entrenched in the German culture, if you want. So they are a little bit less international than the big companies. Or, of course, hopefully some of us can really become multinationals. I'm just trying to hear what your ambitions are in this respect.
To grow.
I just need a bit of rest, so I would not
Short
grow.
answer, because we are running
I would
late.
not grow too fast. No, Alpina can develop only in the niche segments. It cannot compete with the big footwear or boots producers and brands.
Okay, Gregor.
Janko, I fully agree that you can be a visible champion or you can be a hidden champion. And we all know that German economy actually is very visible, but it's based on hidden champions. Our story can develop in only two ways. We cannot stay where we are. We can just develop and become a real industry leader with a strong cooperation with Slovene SMEs and bigger companies. So we can develop further to become maybe 300, 500 million company, or we will be part of a group which will be this size. I hope we will, for a few years, still continue on the, let's say, Slovenian way.
Thank you very much. Wish you both a lot of success. And now, Aisha, we are running a little bit late, but we started late, that's why. Thank you very much. So, exit, acceptance, or succession plan to keep the business in the hand of the family? The answer to these challenges will be presented by Mr. Martin Železnik from PwC, and then followed by Mr. Čadež and Zorko.
Hvala. Dear guests, I must say I'm really honored actually to be part of the organizational team of today's event. I'm happy that so many of you took your time and that you're present here. My name is Martin Železnik. I'm a director in PricewaterhouseCoopers here in Slovenian office. I'm also kind of leading the initiative of private businesses, SMEs, and family businesses in our office. So I'm really happy that we have such a nice topic today. I was challenged actually to comment the topic itself, so synergies between SMEs, large companies, and investors. A lot of it was already discussed during the first two panels. I would just shortly say that I see it as that there should be a real balance between all parties. And me as an accountant, I put the bicycle on the screen on purpose. You need to have the same amount of everything on both sides, otherwise the bike will fall eventually. What actually my topic is, I want to focus on family business because the next panelists are definitely from family business. I want to show a few facts, a few data, if you want, because I think that we don't talk enough about family business. So what I did, I took PwC Family Business Survey. It's actually a survey where we interviewed approximately 3,000 top executives from family businesses across 50 countries. I'm pleased that we will have data for Slovenia very soon, so we'll be able to compare. But I would say that the results will be similar to global ones. So let's stick to the global ones first. So how these businesses differ from non-family businesses? First of all, they have stronger cultures and values. Their decision-making process is faster. They are more entrepreneurial, but on the downside, they find it harder to access capital. And this access of capital, we were actually discussing also in the first part. So yeah, indeed, traditionally they were adverse to actually to third-party investors or fundings. They were adverse to PE and IPO kind of investments. But it was not always by their intentional wish, of course, because some of the funds were unavailable or too expensive for them. Yeah, but in any case, what we found out is that there's a big need to educate family businesses how these sources for growth could and should be used better, and still, of course, keeping the control. The next important thing is to understand how these businesses are run. So what I found out is that in the top 20 family businesses around the globe, 3.3 family members are in the business, and 2.7 family members are actually on the top level of the business itself, which is not surprising. What is actually maybe surprising and what I find it good is that 2/3 of these most successful family businesses have at least one non-family member on board, and this percentage is growing, which is showing that the professionalization of these companies is growing as well. Just for the information itself, half of these top businesses are still in the same industry as they were. I think it's also interesting to look at their key challenges. Here I don't see any surprises because I would say that the key challenges are very similar to other companies. So they see that they should continually innovate. There as a key also kind of challenge is to attract and retain talent. Then of course keeping pace with the competition and economy in general, and of course the digitalization and professionalization of the business. So if I focus on the first one, which is innovation, I find it interesting that, okay, yes, 64% actually said, yeah, we need to continually innovate. But what we found out is that, do they do it well? Because large companies, they have resources to do proper innovation. Family businesses, unfortunately, don't have such resources, and we found that they don't innovate in a way that they should or that they actually could. Only 7% of respondents said that technology is the key challenge. And what I find very interesting is that only 25% of the family businesses feel that they're vulnerable to digital disruption.
Martin,
yeah.
My biggest challenge now is time. So okay. I think it makes sense that we ask now also the family business owners or somebody who already exit. So Nina, will you take over now?
Martin, do you want to add something, or we could
No,
I
just feel because we have actually the panelists who did the exit. I mean, maybe I would just share a few very important things because I think it's really important to understand the business. The exit itself is very important and is very crucial. It has a lot of actually advantages, and it could be done wrongly because the process is not okay, because the advisors and consultants are not there to help them. Just a second. I think that actually, in any case, if you don't do the exit, you leave your business that you grow to your future generations. And the problem is that the plan of succession is not there. It's not prepared in majority of the cases. And with this, I will leave, of course, Nevenka for further discussions. I'm looking forward to hear what the next guests have to say, and please, thank you.
Martin, thank you very much. So sorry, because we have to push you a little bit. Let me now to invite Mr. Matjaž Čadež and Mr. Igor Zorko. They are actually both, they can share with us the experiences about the succession plan, the exit. As you all know, Mr. Matjaž Čadež, who in 1992 got a child, Halkom, and unfortunately he didn't have a successor, so in 2014 he decided to sell the company. On the other side we have Mr. Zorko, where succession for a time being was successful. His father established a company and 4 brothers are taking over. So not easy at all.
Brothers and
Three.
my sister.
Oh, so sorry. Sorry to your sister. Matthias, first for you. I mean, Halcom was your child. How difficult was it to sell, and how difficult was to find the right buyer?
It's a very interesting history. I knew already in 2008 that sooner or later I have to leave from the management position. I know that my son did not want to succeed, did not want to follow. So then in 2013, 2014, in Halcom, the management team and me decided to look for a strategic partner. Thank you. Okay. To the strategic partner, because we were aware that we do not have space to grow anymore. With the management team, we still had quite good capital, but not good enough in comparison to our main competitors. So then we were, let's say, we were approached by a lot of companies, quite all over the world, about 10 countries. And one day we received Michael letter, Michael email, and we looked at the background of the company. At that time it was called still Constellation. And I found that it is the right way. Why? Because I wanted my company to become a part of a frame where the life of Halcom would proceed, would not stop.
And is it? Is it going on? Is it successful?
Definitely. We found also our philosophy very similar. And so I was very happy in 2014, and especially today when I talked to Michael, because I do not, let's say, involve anymore in Halcom. I found out that Halcom has a different, let's say, way as when I led the Halcom, but Halcom has a perspective, a very, very strong perspective where it's going, and this perspective is very similar to what I want it to be.
Very good. Your story is a little bit different. So you have, you succeeded your father with your brothers and sister, but on the other side, you would like to grow faster. So are you thinking of, let's say, look for an investor, or is there bank financing sufficient on the market for your growth?
Yeah, thank you very much for getting me here. ZZI has two stages. One was the first stage when my father was leading the company, and the company mostly deal with projects of developing software for known projects for developing software for known company or known government institutions. And then when the children came, we started to look not to be dependent just on these big projects, but also to offer some product for the market. So we were trying to establish some brands, some software who can be offered in more, sales to the companies. And then it was a big change. My father said, I want to retire. And we were looking for a manager of the company. And we got a manager, and it was terrible. So maybe not because of him, maybe because of us. But we didn't, like professional one, we didn't get together. And then I took over in 2006. And I think we have a good chemistry between my two brothers and sister. And we are specialized in very different fields. So we work together very good. And we have also a very good team who support us and who believes in the future of the company. But we are very strong here in Slovenia and maybe in the region, but we are not successful in getting to the global market. And
Why?
we're trying, we don't have all the expertise that we need for that. That's the first problem. We don't have, as it was mentioned, people in Slovenia don't have this kind of
drive.
I think experience. It's more because we are more of the people who work here, who go to school here, have regional experience, not or Slovenian experience, not global. And this is changing because of ICOs or startups and so on, but it will take time. So we don't have this kind of time. So we are looking for some kind of partnership. We are also thinking about getting investors in the company, but also...
You started the process?
No, we didn't yet. We're thinking
Are you
about it.
approached by some investors?
We were approached. It was very good. I was surprised how understandable they are and how they support this kind of business that we have and digital business. But as you mentioned, it's very quick decisions on innovation and getting new products in the company in small companies. But at the same time, where you have this kind of decision, it's a very long process. Because you don't look at KPIs, you look at the family business, you look at the history, you look, your co-workers are friends and some kind of family. And it's hard to think how it will change in the future.
Do you think you can grow only with, without asking, I mean, getting the investors, maybe to grow your company with better cooperation with other Slovenian SMEs?
Yeah, I don't know
SMEs?
how many people knows our company. So we are doing, if you heard BizBox, so it's like some kind of ecosystem of different companies, how to cooperate together and how to do the Industry 4.0 cooperation, digitalization, so on. So it's our main business to cooperate, to do partnerships, and to make revenue also for other partners. For example, producers or offerings of business systems or ERP systems in the companies, how they can earn money by cooperating with us and vice versa. So we have about 50 partners, about 11,000 companies who are using our software, and this software and cloud solutions services are used for cooperating between them. So we are in collaboration business, some kind of business-to-business cooperation business.
If we talk a little bit about the challenges that SMEs are facing, what, in your opinion, are the main challenges? Matthias or Igor? Igor, you are also the chairman or vice president of the Chamber of Commerce for the small and medium enterprises. So,
yeah,
which are the topics you discussed there?
We have a few topics. I think it's very hard for small businesses because the managers of small companies are everything. So the lawyer, the finance manager, the I don't know, the secretary, everything.
That's why red tape is such a burden for them.
And it's hard to have somebody who is just looking at this part of the picture. And we are trying. I think the Chamber of Commerce don't have every resources to offer them all the information, all the stuff that they need. But I think it's very, very important that the small and medium business are getting together, try to build competencies for this field. And I think it will be very, very good maybe to establish some kind of cooperation between the whole environment of small and medium businesses and investors and the people who know how to do it, and maybe to share these kind of practices and to offer them some kind of support in the process of getting from the local market to the global market, from the, how to say, family-owned to the owned by somebody else. So I think this would be very good. Competences, I think, are the biggest problem. You don't have time to read everything all the time or to have experience about it.
I would like to jump to maybe a little bit, different issue, but still, Matthias, when we discussed over the phone, you mentioned, you're aware that we have still a lot of Slovenian state-owned companies, big companies, and you believe that values within state-owned companies and privately or SMEs are very different. Why? And what should we do to change this?
I believe that it's not only state-owned companies, but also shareholding companies and family business companies.
He doesn't like shareholding companies.
Namely, and this is not only my opinion, I of course learn from also other people. Family business emphasis incremental over explosion growth. That is important because they are looking in a long-term goal, because they are not looking for a fast, let's say, dividend explosion, but they are looking that the company will live over generation and will give back the return on investment over generation. They are also looking into evolutionary over revolutionary change. And maybe not a lot of people know that 80% of the total GDP, worldwide GDP, is based on family business, not on big companies. And also, there's one thing which is important: family business look at the future at the same way as they look at the past. While state-owned companies are mainly, let's say, dependent upon the shareholders, and shareholders are normally the state, and a state is also always interested only in big dividends, or in Slovenia even for some political support.
Interests.
So that's why personally I believe that in Slovenia the state-owned ownership should be absolutely minimized until the values in Slovenia change, like the values in Norwegian, for example, are at the moment. In Norway, there is no problem to have a state-owned companies. In Slovenia, there is a big problem to have a state-owned
And here, I'll jump in, because this could be a discussion that would go on.
I'm
and
very sorry
agree.
we were not able to develop a
But
little.
let's stay over the coffee and discuss even more. And with that, I would like to thank to you, Nevenka. It was not an easy job, but you did it perfectly. Thank you.
Not an easy job.
I would also like to thank to all of the speakers, because they enriched our views and definitely give us a lot of fruit for thought and to action, not only for thought.
Action.
And with that, I would like to thank all of you for being with us. I think that it was really an excellent breakfast, not only food, but especially what we learned. And one thing that I heard many times is relationship, people, and that's why cooperation, synergies, ecosystem. So there are really some messages that we need to...
And growth.
And growth, yeah. And when we talk growth, there is also one thing that will start on the 20th of May. You all know that Slovenia proposed the World Bee Day, and I'm really proud that this will become upon the Slovene, as we all know that Einstein said, "What there will be no bees anymore." We have really little time, and we are running out right now. But why we did this Believe in Slovenia initiative? It's an initiative where we will present Slovenes that are living abroad, that are living in US, and we have really a fortune there. Just sold in US 150 to 300,000 people thinks they are Slovenes. So please never forget that bees have their, in Slovenia it's really nice, Matica. So Slovenia is a Matica, and Believe in Slovenia, be loved, and we need a good access system that we can do it. Thank you for today, and looking forward for the next time.